Okay, what we'll do today is we'll have a look at Ethereum and have a look at some price projections moving into 2022 and the key levels that you need to be looking out for. If you like the video, please go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this content. It helps me also share this out so more people can get hold of this information. So I'm going to tell you exactly how I see it. Okay, I'm not trying to brag or anything, right? But you know, look back at what I told you with Chainlink. Okay, I put out a video with Chainlink. I said buy this about two weeks ago. I said this is a good buying opportunity in my opinion. Okay, I didn't tell you to buy AVAX. I didn't tell you to buy Ethereum. I didn't tell you to buy Luna. I said those wait for better value opportunities to come into the market. Okay, so I'm going to mark out those key levels for you and tell you where you need to be getting into the market if that market opportunity presents itself. So first things first is, like I said, the way that I'm looking at this is that we move higher, and I think we are somewhere in this phase of the market cycle where we're essentially in some kind of reaccumulation and range bounds, and we move higher. Interestingly, if you actually have a look at this fractal, which I don't think most people are talking about, is we have formed something quite similar where we basically had a sharp correction when we had that May peak, retested those high levels, and now we're coming down and retesting. And we're retesting somewhere down here, which maybe this is where we bottom out, you know, fairly soon. Okay, so just something to pay attention to. Right. The first thing I want to do is mark out some levels on the logarithmic regression rainbow because this actually slows down my computer quite a lot. But typically, the way that I like to look at things is we typically get some kind of lengthening cycle and diminished returns, right? And we tend to drop some standard deviation down from the last market cycle peak, okay? And if we do that, we can sort of have a look at some price areas that we can, you know, extrapolate moving into this year. So we had this peak over here, okay, where if we say that we're playing out something similar over here, right? The way that I'm looking at this is we essentially punctured into this logarithmic channel, and then we sort of came back down, and we did something similar here. We punctured into the orange, came back up, and then came back down, and we dropped down essentially you know, down to our corrective levels. And what we did after that is we moved up essentially 1.5 or 1 level again. Okay, so if we assume that with time that these logarithmic bands are getting longer and prices are also trending up, so if we look at this from here, we could maybe extrapolate that somewhere in this region, okay, right, I'm not sure exactly where, maybe somewhere towards this purple or towards this sort of magenta line over here, we could essentially extrapolate maybe some sort of price box or range, okay, over here that we can start to mark out, because I don't think that we'll quite get to a $30,000 Ethereum in this cycle, okay? I don't think that, but I do think that we've got a good shot of somewhere between like 8,000 and 15,000 as our next target, okay? So maybe, like I said, we move up a band and we got here, and then we move up a band from here, we maybe take it up towards this level here. So we've got that, we're going to take that off. What can we have a look at from some of our fib extensions? So we know that, again, our 1.618 and our 4.236 are key areas to look out for. With Ethereum, I won't go through every sort of impulse wave, but it does tend to like more than other coins a 2.36 level on the fib. Okay, so these are the levels that we can mark out. And the way that I'm looking at this, okay, is can we see any confluence with that zone from this peak up here? Okay, okay, that's the way that I'd be looking at it, from that essential impulse wave up to 4,600, something like that, 4,700. So we've got this here, and then we can mark out some of these levels. So we go, okay, we've got the 9,000 level here at the 1.618. Okay, and then we've got another one here at the 14,000. Okay, at the 2.618. And we also look at the 4.236 if we get some sort of crazy extension, okay, at which point I would be looking to certainly take profits at this level if we ever reach them. Okay, so we've got those levels as well. So let's mark those out. We're starting to get this range between 8,000 and 23,000, okay, at the absolute upper end, right? So is there anything else from historical price data that we can have a look at? Okay, so another interesting thing to look at is from peak to peak is we tend to move somewhere around 200%, okay? So we moved 240% from the last mid-cycle peak up to the top, okay? And from this peak, before we got our major correction, we also moved in and around 200%, okay? So even if we've got some sort of diminished returns, can we extrapolate from this high over here some sort of similar range, right? Now that 200%, again, puts us somewhere in the 15,000 range, right? So we're now starting to create those upper price targets where we can look to maybe take profits if we get that next leg higher. So that's essentially how I would be looking at Ethereum for price targets moving into the future. And if you look at just, we don't know exactly where this is going to bottom, but my thinking is that we spoke about Bitcoin, where we think that we're probably close to a bottom. If our bottom tends to be, is going to be somewhere around here, okay, we can extrapolate, you know, some sort of fib targets over here, and again, we're getting the 4.236, 1.618 at the 8,000. So again, somewhere in these boxes, we're getting confluence where we can find a range, okay, to basically find some price targets, okay? And then if we even use this impulse wave, okay, if we don't breach this low, you can see, again, we're getting to these price targets up here that we can look to, you know, form our price targets. So like I said, the way that I'd be looking at it, if I was trying to scale out of this market and that market cycle does extend, I'd be looking to take profits as early as that $8,500, $9,000 level, and maybe we get some psychological resistance around there, which is some of our fib targets that we looked at, but also 10,000 psychological, okay? Then we correct back down and when we move back higher. So I'm looking at something like that to play out this year, and essentially you want to be scaling out from these levels. So that's basically how I'm looking at Ethereum, right? And now in the short to medium term, okay, I do think Ethereum has does have a little bit of work cut out, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so even if this fractal sort of plays out, I'm expecting BTC to lead first out of our next major rally, okay, if we get that big push higher. And I'm expecting Ethereum to maybe do, I don't know if it comes down here or we essentially stay range bound and we eventually break out a little bit later, but the way that I'm looking at Ethereum is if we look at ETH BTC for the short to medium term, I did say to people that if you're in Ethereum here, I don't think this is a good opportunity to just be going, you know, brain dead long on Ethereum going, okay, we broke new highs. Because remember, breakout trades are some of the worst trades. Not only do they not often play out, but they have often the worst risk to reward ratio, okay, in a lot of cases. Okay, so I don't like trading breakouts. But interestingly, on the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, I think an area of value, okay, let's just dial this down to the weekly, to enter Ethereum, like we spoke on Chainlink, okay, some of those key levels, and I think that they will come. I think there's a good opportunity that they will come, okay. I think some of the main levels to look out for is going to be this weekly range over here, where we saw some price action over here, where we can potentially look to not necessarily call a bottom, but maybe some important price action that we can consider. And I think that an ultimate conversion to Ethereum is going to be somewhere down here at the 0.4 level, where we've got this massive floor support down here, where I would definitely be expecting some sort of bounce from there. So those are the levels that I'm looking to add to Ethereum if we get there. I'm not looking to add at the minute, okay, because I think BTC has a good chance of outperforming the market in the next leg up. Okay, so that's essentially how I'm looking at it. That's on the weekly. If you look on the monthly, it looks even clearer. Look at this. So we've got some. You can see some support here that we marked out, right? But look at the weekly, the monthly. The monthly targets that we want to be aiming for, right? And we can see if we get that, that is going to be an ultimate buy the dip Ethereum BTC opportunity. If we're still continuing to trend higher in this bull cycle, I think that is going to be a massive opportunity if we do get down here. So just some levels to mark out, okay? And just another interesting thing that I wanted to mark out in terms of levels is, we know that when we retrace, the 0.618 fib is a key golden pocket to be adding to positions, right? And interestingly enough, before Ethereum actually sees a reaction at those levels, it tends to basically go to the 618 or just below, okay, and we'll show you that in a moment, and then it tends to make, you know, a pretty nice rally back to the upside. So that's another reason that I was marking out those key levels, which I'll show you in a moment. So we'll leave that there. And what we'll do is, if you look at, for example, this level here. Now, I'm not saying, right, I'm saying where we're going to see a reaction. We don't know, you know, exactly if that's going to be like, this is going to be the next leg to move higher. But what you can see is we do get a reaction here just below this 618. So we've got a reaction there just below the 618. Okay. And you can see just in general as a pattern, you can see just below the 618 over here. You can see on some of these impulses over here, right? This impulse, which I count as one impulse, just below the 618. Okay, so I can also pick out a few other examples, but I'm not going to. But if we look at this impulse from the bottom of September 19, right, and we take it to the top, what do we find? We find that we get this confluence over here, okay, again at the 618, and maybe if we dip down below it, where does that coincide with? This area here. This to me is the ultimate buy the dip opportunity for Ethereum if we manage to get there, okay? And if you think that Ethereum cannot lose another 50% versus Bitcoin, then I think you're sorely mistaken. You know, it's not just only up, and so you know, we've seen like massive sharp corrections before from Ethereum, even in a bull market. Look at this, 43%. So you know, we can get these big drops and declines, and like I said, I just don't think that this area up here is an area of value to either be converting Bitcoin to Ethereum, or even from a USD standpoint, where like, it can grind higher, right? But I do think that this would be a nice area to add, okay, because there's no guarantees we get down here. And then this, I would be looking to heavily scale into Ethereum at that 0.4 level. And then a little bit of, shall we say, dubious speculation moving up from, whoops, as a fib target from there. If we were to reach here, right, we could see, again, extrapolate some potential targets where we spoke about the 1.618. But if that does occur, right, where we could maybe, you know, target some of these peaks up here, but 1-to-1 somewhere around there, 618 up there, I probably wouldn't be holding on to my Ethereum quite this high. But yeah, and again, that would represent, if you can be patient and wait that long, and or if we do get that opportunity, that could represent a 200 to 300% move versus Bitcoin, and maybe that happens later in the market cycle, because we know that Ethereum tends to push late in the market cycle, like it did over here when BTC had finished its run to 60k or thereabouts, right? So that's basically how I'm looking at Ethereum. Is at the minute not quite the levels for me to add at, but I'm definitely looking at adding here and converting maybe some Bitcoin at the 0.05 level, and potentially again for sure at the 0.04 level for some kind of big bounce. Okay, we've also got this rising trend line. Maybe we get there later, right? Maybe we grind down towards the end of the year, in like October 2022, and then maybe rally. Okay, I'm not sure. The when is not so important for me. I'm just looking to add at those key levels and trade them and essentially exit if we kind of get that push higher. So something to look out for. The last thing that I just wanted to mention about Ethereum is I would say that in the last quarter it did surprise me. I was expecting Ethereum versus BTC to possibly downtrend, okay, in the last quarter, but essentially it actually held up really well and moved sideways. So maybe we do get that correction now, but definitely Ethereum a strong contender for the rest of this cycle should we move higher, and we can I would imagine that would extrapolate, you know, some of these key levels would probably extrapolate to versus the Bitcoin, you know, at maybe that $8,000 to $15,000 range. If we get anything above $15,000, I think we're pretty heated at that point, and probably approaching a market cycle top if we get there. So if you like the content, hopefully you got something out of this and you learned something new. Like I said, go ahead, like it. Please give me a comment down below where you think Ethereum is heading into 2022, or maybe you think we're going into a bear market and the whole market is going to shit the bed and we're basically fucked. Maybe you think that. I don't quite think that at the minute. I think this market cycle has legs. It's just about finding the right opportunities and the key entry points for Ethereum and other coins, and being patient. Like I said, I'm not going to bullshit you and tell you the levels, like FOMO into stuff at the top. I always tell you the mark out the key levels, be patient, just like Chainlink. I said we spoke about that. Obviously they've got to be project that you're bullish on and projects that you think have a future. But yeah, essentially that's how I'm looking at the market. So until the next one, peace out. Catch you in the next one.